Hello, Radiant One, and a very big and a very warm welcome to Mastery, the show and podcast for brilliant spiritual beings just like you, having a human experience ready to ignite the mastery inherent in you, as well as grow and expand from within and wanting to lead with love in work, business, and life. Designed to activate the mastery already within you, here we merge the worlds of seen and unseen, magic and miracles with the mundane and the practical, spirituality with strategy, the energetic with the physical, and business, work, and life with a whole lot of love and soul. I'm your host, spiritual business coach, business developer, and radical love rebel Maria Saraphina. And it is my deep honor, my great pleasure, and joy to share this episode with you. I serve business owners and leaders wanting to learn and be supported as you navigate leading with heart and soul. I do that through the Spiritual Leadership Academy, the Spiritual MBA, and one-on-one spiritual business coaching full of intuition and energetic alignment. You can find out more about everything on my website, mariasarafina.com. Having been called to this show and podcast, it is my strong guess that mastery is already inherent within you, Radiant One. If you'd like to expand and amplify that mastery, download the Mastery Activation I've created for you. Originally released within my paid membership, The Elevation, I've now made it available to all. Go to mariasarafina.com/MA or click the link in the description to receive it. Remember, if you enjoy Mastery, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, or leave a review to amplify the energy and love being shared in these transmissions so they can reach more and more gorgeous radiant beings like you. Today I'm joined by Christoffer Hagen, a former colleague of mine from my time in corporate whom I've been connected with ever since. It was Christoffer's open, honest, and in my eyes very vulnerable and very resonating posts about his struggles with alcohol, recent autism diagnosis, and general perspective on life and work on LinkedIn that drew me to invite him on. Christoffer is an experienced HR professional with over 20 years of national and global experience in various industries, including logistics, technology, and finance. Currently serving as head of HR and communication at DHL Global Forwarding, he leads the development and execution of HR and communication strategies that support business objectives, employee engagement, performance, and well-being. In addition, he's a certified coach and advisory board member who focuses on mentoring, stress prevention and management, leadership development, and career coaching to help individuals and teams achieve personal and professional goals. He's also a passionate advocate for the DEIB agenda in Denmark. Outside of work, his time is spent on running, baking, and being a huge Lego fan, both building and collecting. Here is our sacred conversation. Mr. Christoffer Hagen, we haven't even talked about how to pronounce your name in English because normally we're both Danish. So Christoffer, how do you? Christoffer.
Christoffer is probably the right one. Yep.
Christoffer. Welcome to Mastery. Would you start out by introducing yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
It depends on how you look at it, but from a personal point of view, I'm 49, used to live in Copenhagen, born and raised in Copenhagen, now living in Aalborg in the northern part of Denmark. Been there for almost 14 years. From a professional side, I'm the head of HR in one of DHL's many companies in Denmark, a company of 225-ish people. So, yeah. That's the short version. Very short version. Who am I? I'm a runner, partially. It's always difficult to find yourself as a runner, I think. What else? I like to bake. I like to build Lego.
Yes.
I'm a bonus dad. I'm a son. I'm a brother. Stuff like that.
Wonderful. Well, like I said, welcome to Mastery. You and I, we have a bit of history, which actually we just found out before coming on is
It was very short.
very, very short. Is way shorter than I remember
Yeah,
because we're former colleagues from what was called, I don't even know, was it called? Your company was probably called PBS, which is one of
PBS
the,
at the time.
yeah, and now it's Nets, which is is an acquirer in Denmark or in Northern Europe,
Mm.
Scandinavia. And for some reason I had the notion that we had been colleagues for a while,
Yeah,
but
and we just found out it was a couple of months, but
yeah, it was
we
just a
made
couple
an
of months.
impression.
Yeah, you left an impression, that's for sure. So normally when we start these conversations, I like to ask people, how their journey with spirituality began. But with you, like I shared before we went on, I'd like to start in a different area because when I reached out to you and asked you whether you wanted to be a guest in this conversation, your response was like, what makes you think that I have a spiritual approach to life?
Mm.
And which I loved, as I've shared with you, because I don't try to define someone's spirituality. I don't want to
Mm.
define someone's spirituality. I just like to share different perspectives so that people can be who they are with what they have or where they're at. And I think like quote unquote old new age spirituality is a lot about, there is a lot of dogma where it is about, oh, you're supposed to be doing it this way, which
Mm.
I don't necessarily ascribe to. So would you start by sharing your perspective, I suppose, on spiritual? I know this is a very big question, but like what is spirituality to you, or how do you define, if it's even a definition or that?
I think it was actually quite interesting because from a social media point of view, LinkedIn, that's quite corporate, even though I'm quite personal, talking about my story as a sober alcoholic, as an autist, and when you asked, I actually at some point I went through my Instagram and I could see that from time to time I have a post on something that might be some kind of spiritual, but it actually, and that was just the curiosity of how the F does she think that I'm a spiritual person, but it actually started a process because I think I also wrote to you, well, there might be something about it because I have two totem animals tattooed on my body, and yeah, there might be you just don't get tattoos on a hunch, or so there is probably a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
So it actually started a process within myself saying, okay, well, how does this actually, is this part of my life, the spiritual
Yeah.
uh, part?
Yeah.
And when I asked my ex-wife and my bonus daughter, they said, well, of course you are. And it was quite simple. It was actually quite simple. Uh, just, I think I just forgot on during the process, or being in the midst of it, the things I do or the things I've learned from, especially those two,
Yeah.
and actually trying to, I think, view there's more between heaven and earth than
Yeah.
we can see.
Yes.
And I think I've been married twice, both times in the big white, black and white wedding in
Oh,
churches, and I think uh, the priest at the first wedding,
mhm.
because we were actually talking about the promise of loving each other until death do you part. And he had the interpretation that, well, it was just for him, it could both be the physical death, but it could actually also just be the death of the love.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he opened the back door. Not, and then when I came to the second wedding, I think I had the perception that, well, I can't, if I'm getting to be remarried, it has to be in a city hall or a public wedding, not a religious church wedding, because I can't make the promise twice to do it until death do us part, to the Lord himself.
Yeah.
But then my ex-wife, now ex-wife, she did it the reverse way, getting
Oh,
first a public wedding,
yeah.
and then she wanted to
Yeah.
have the dream.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Uh, and I think that process fueled or started something in me saying, well, I think a lot of Danes, yes, we have the religion, the Christianity as part of
Yeah.
our culture,
Yeah.
but that's basically that. We
Yes.
go to church at Christmas and Easter and whatever big occasions, baptisms, weddings and stuff like that.
I
And
call us Lala Christians.
mm,
It's sort of Lala. It's like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you can pick and choose, and
Yeah.
it's more relaxed in that sense.
Yeah.
In at least the Danish version, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so I think I thought something about my religion and my faith,
Mhm.
but I also think that I think for a lot of years I called myself an atheist
Oh, okay.
until I learned that atheism wasn't the right one. It was probably more the uh,
Agnostic. Yeah.
yes
Yeah.
um, version, saying, well, basically I'm not smart enough to say whether there is something or
No.
not.
No.
Uh, I truly believe that no one is that clever,
No.
and I think the approach is, well, it doesn't hurt to think that there is something.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
we are in a universe. It would be, for me, a an insane idea thinking that we are the only
Yes.
living thing.
Yes.
Uh, we are
Yes.
on the only planet in the
Yes.
entire universe where
Yes.
someone can live,
Yes. Yes.
or something.
Yes.
So I think the perception I've come to take on is that,
Yeah.
well, there might be something out there,
Yes.
but whether it's someone sitting above a cloud, or
Yeah.
uh, an energy, or
Yeah.
just me believing in something,
Yes.
uh, to actually give me some sort of anchor in life, or
Yeah.
uh, support.
Yeah. Elevation. Yeah. That
Yeah.
supports you. Yeah. That's how I view it as well. For me, to me, God is energy. If we're, God is, to me, is energy, and energy is love. Love is energy.
Mm.
So um but I have the same notion that you share, like the idea that like we're supposed to be the only ones is, and I have the same with when people talk about astrology, is like we know that the sun and we know what the sun and the moon does to life on Earth. And so the idea that the sun and the moon and all of the planets and all of the stars are the only ones that are supposed to be affecting life on Earth,
Mm.
that's to me illogical. I'm
Yeah.
not saying what it does. I don't claim to know. I just think the other thing is illogical. Um, you mentioned having tattooed two totem animals on your body. When did that happen? Did you get them separately or at the same time? And how did that process come about of getting those tattoos?
um, I think every tattoo I have, uh, there's always been a deeper meaning of me getting it. It's not, well, that's pretty, I have to have that. There has to be a story, or someone actually said it at one point. It's my life story on my skin.
Yeah.
And the first totem animal I got tattooed is on the back of my calf. Was actually a present to myself, being 1 year sober.
Yeah.
Getting it's the head of a white bald-headed eagle, the American eagle. That's the head of it. Above the head is the all-seeing eye, the triangle with the eye. Because that's a symbol used in AA as well. Again, some higher power.
It's also known as the third eye, which is the
the one there. So so there is probably some sort of spirituality in it anyway. So that was the reason why I got that, because that was the totem animal for me, was the simple that at that point, me getting reaching the first year of sobriety, where a lot of I'm not going to AA right now, but part of the AA is that there is a higher power, and yes, in a lot of the literature it's called God, but I think from at least the group I went to was, well, you have to find your own version. So for me, my own version was the bald-headed eagle, because I think it's graceful. It has the ability to go in the helicopter. It has the ability to be on ground. So it has had some of the characteristics. I can explain the reason why I have these two totem animals at a later point, but so that was the first one. The second one is a sea turtle. Actually, that's on my forearm, and that's that was actually not necessarily because it was the totem animal, but it was a drawing that my daughter made of a sea turtle. So I got that copied to the arm. So that's more the symbol of my love to her, that actually getting, and she was blown away the day I got it. I think it's a drawing from when she was 12, actually quite detailed, but to choose to have that put permanently, more or less, on the skin was also a story in itself. But and that's where the conversation with you also brought me a bit back, because I think the totem animals were it was the first instance where I think I met the concept of spirituality, and that was actually coming to Aalborg, meeting my, at the time, future wife. She's a bit more spiritual in that way, and I can't remember how we got in touch, but in the forest around Aalborg, the Rebil, lived a woman calling herself a witch. And we were, I think at some point she was offering, she had some kind of offer. You can contact her and give a few details, and then she could find out what totem animal you had. And I was, right. uh, not gonna happen,
As we
not
all are in
working.
the beginning of our
Yeah,
journeys. Yes.
yeah, that's not possible. But that it could be funny. Um, and we hadn't at that point we hadn't met her face to face, and then I think she emailed back saying, "Well, Christopher, I found out that your totem animal is a sea turtle." Uh, and not because I have a very close relationship to sea turtles in that sense, but it was quite interesting for me, and probably one of the first experience saying, well, there is more between heaven and earth, because going back to and then our joint past at the PBS,
Yeah.
uh, one of the first, I think, team events we had when I joined the HR department in that company was a team event where in the beginning there was we were coming together as a group, and I think the first activity was there was 100 pictures on the floor, and you had to choose the picture that spoke the most to you.
Yeah.
And that was back in 2001, uh, and you had to explain why you were
Yeah.
picking the picture or choosing the picture. And I actually chose a picture of a very majestic sea turtle in the water.
Wow.
And the reason why that picture spoke to me was that for me, that symbolized that a sea turtle is extremely agile
Mm.
in the water,
Yes.
but extremely fragile on land.
Yes.
So this duality in
Yeah.
which I saw in myself, that there's a suit of armor,
Yeah.
yeah, in the right condition you can do whatever you want to,
Yeah.
but if you're in the wrong environment,
Yes.
then you're just fragile and vulnerable. And
Yes.
so, and then 10 years later I got this, well, the sea turtle is your totem animal, and was just, well, this can't, there has to be a connection. It can't be a coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
um it's too weird
Yeah.
uh, uh, that she's picking the only, and it's probably the only team activity I can really remember.
Yes.
That's me picking that picture.
Yes.
And then I had to ask her, well, can you see any other totem animals? And then she came up with the bald-headed eagle,
Oh,
and that's just a
wow.
cool animal in my point of view.
Yeah. Yes.
So so yeah, I think
That's
the and
wild.
again, yeah, and again, it's the, as I said about the universe. Who am I to say that she wasn't right, that she didn't have the ability, or
Yeah.
even those, if I get very logical and rational, and well, and I think this was in 2009, 2010, so she didn't know me, she couldn't see my social media, she couldn't blah blah blah.
No.
And even if as I said, if I take on the logical
Yeah.
perspective, saying, well, there's there is nothing between heaven and earth, and
Yeah.
then she's quite a good guesser.
Yes. I wonder,
At
so
least.
at least how do you first thank you for sharing. That is a wild story. And I'm wondering because one of the things is it's not so much what it means to other people, but what does you mentioned the duality and the fragility and the agility in water. But also now you've carried that with you for the past, I would then 20, almost 25
Mm.
years, with varying, and that's the thing for me, it's like when we begin our journeys, I was like you, was like, this is all batshit crazy. I'm what, like what? And then, the more work I've done, the more inner work I've done, the more I call it lifting the veils. the more batshit crazy people will probably perceive me to be.
Mm.
I'm totally fine with that because I am at peace, I am happy, I'm satisfied, I'm like, but I'm wondering, it's more about your relationship. So how has your relationship with that sea turtle developed over the years? And how do you, if it, and it may not be conscious, but how do you carry its spirit or its energy with you in your life and in your work? If at all, if it's, I don't even know, it might not be something that you think about at all.
I'm not sure it's a conscious journey for me in that way. It's more for me, I think it was quite crucial that it was a crucial point in time that she chose if she'd chosen any other animal as
Yeah.
the first one, I think it
Yes.
might have gone a different
Yes.
direction,
Yes.
uh, but it just made sense at the time.
Yes. Yes.
And seeing, and that's actually not a thing I've thought about, but actually just thinking about right now is that the also me getting, I got diagnosed last year with autism.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, you have a duality of me
Yes.
living in a world where I've put on the armor for
Yes.
48 years.
Yes.
Uh, Now it's my time to walk on land,
Yes.
to show the fragile
Yeah.
side of me. So I think the meaning is the meaning I put into the picture at that time
Yes.
is actually something that has followed me
Yeah. Yeah.
throughout life.
Yeah.
Also during my drinking time, it's the same. That in the right element, I had a career, I had the house, I had the
Yeah.
perfect family, etc. But behind the scenes, there was a different Christoffer,
Yeah. Yeah.
hiding, trying to protect himself.
Yeah.
Uh, I think for me, it's and you can say in part of the sobriety, as I said, in the AA, it is having a higher power,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
having in the literature it's called God,
Yeah.
as part of the journey, and I think the idea is that, well, if I was able to stop drinking by myself, I didn't need someone else to come in, and it's that undefined, unexplainable thing that I think a lot of alcoholics experience, that something someday made the difference, but you can't explain what happened that day. Why was it that day you took the decision that now this is going to be over?
Yeah.
And I think for me at least, it's a way of just putting a word on something we can't explain, saying, well, I
Yeah.
can't explain whether it's God or was it someone who said something to me, but it wasn't me
No.
uh, doing it. Uh,
No.
so I think it's an element, and I think for me, at least, I'm not saying I'm seeing. That would be the wrong term in this conversation, but experiencing that there is more and more occasions in my life where there's happening inexplicable
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
at least things I'm not smart enough to rationalize.
Yeah.
And then instead of spending a lot of time trying to
Yeah.
understand it,
Yeah.
for me, it's enough to say, well,
It is what it is.
it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah. And I think that that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's part of, I mean, that's part of the journey, is getting to that point of not having to explain, but there's a lot of surrender involved. And, I call myself a recovering control freak because like I wanted to put everything in boxes. I wanted to But when it comes to living your life the way I do now, there's a lot of surrender into it, and there's a lot of, and I don't know, maybe that's because I'm old, we're old, is that that um, being okay with not having the answer to everything is one thing that you mentioned, and you mentioned about fragility, and that's the thing. If people follow you on LinkedIn or is connected with you on LinkedIn, they will see that you share very, I suppose, and that the reason why I'm bringing this up is because what you perceive as fragility, I'm sure a lot of people will experience as or perceive as courageous or being brave.
Mm,
And very often, I like to say this, like very often, us being courageous or brave internally is experienced as a shit ton of fear or fragility. Um, and so there is that aspect. And I invite people to really yeah, connect or follow you because you do share the perspectives that you share, the inclusion, the openness that you have with your past as well as where
mm,
you're at now is yeah, it's very inspirational, I find. So I would just encourage people to do that.
thanks.
You're welcome. In terms of where did you, because today you work in HR. And when we knew each other, like again, for those brief months, which is still blowing my mind that it was only a few months because yeah, I don't know. I felt like I saw you on in the hallways all the time, but
Mm.
you were in sales. So when did you make the, I have a bunch of questions that's coming up, but that's the first one. So when did you make the jump from being in sales to being in HR?
It's actually the other way around, because
Oh,
before I came to sales, I was in HR as
oh,
well.
oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
so sales was, I think, my the my career story is that it's. Uh, I've also written it on the wall in my office that part of a career is talent, work ethic, and luck.
Talent worth it.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think part of my career has been luck in the sense that, well, it's about being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Uh, that has the flip side that sometimes I think the when you board the train, it takes you to a certain place,
Mhm.
and you can't define where it's going. You just step on it. And I think the first part of my career was when I graduated from CBS, Copenhagen Business School. I was working at PBS at the time. Had the opportunity to enter into the HR world,
Yeah.
um, and well, that was the first job. Of course, I said yes, and then I just kept going in that direction for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I think the moment was for me to change away from HR, was, I think, was 2005-ish. So
Mhm.
it's approximately not even, was it 29, something like that. Saying,
Mhm.
well, if I have to try something else than just
Yeah.
going into
Nice.
HR for the rest of my life, I
Yeah.
have to do something else.
Yeah.
Uh, and then again, in the company we were in, there was a lot of
Yes.
opportunities, and I got
Yes.
the opportunity
Yes.
to get into sales, and
Yeah.
first as a sales support, and just trying that out,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
seeing how that was. I think I didn't enter sales with the perception of, or the idea of me becoming an account manager of some sort,
Mm.
um, because I'm extremely introvert, regardless of which personality test I take. Uh, um, extremely,
Yeah.
and but it was well, at the time it was, well, let's just try. I haven't got anything to lose to go into that
Yeah.
situation or that position. And then within a couple of years, I just grew in the organization.
Yeah.
Um, Again, I think the work ethic, the talent was there,
Yeah.
or at least the competencies were there
Yeah.
to a certain point.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it was approximately after 3 years, I was having the second largest customer in the company,
Yeah.
um, and the company was in a situation where they wanted to go from, yeah, as you know, from a Danish company to
Yeah.
a Nordic at the
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah.
And the thing that broke me was I got a requirement or a target from our CEO at the time saying, well, today you have Nordea, the customer in Denmark.
Yeah.
You have approximately 10 months to get them in the entire Nordic region. Um, and that was a very steep curve.
Yeah.
And especially for me, because I'm not I think when we go into the sales terminology, I'm
Yeah.
a I'm an excellent farmer,
Yeah.
farming customers, taking care of them, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not the one breaking down doors.
No.
Uh, I hate calling people
Yeah.
if they hadn't asked about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Cold calling it. Yeah.
yeah, cold calling, I can't do it.
No.
Cold calling to me, if I haven't got the number in my phone, I'm not going to answer the call.
No.
Uh,
No.
can't do it.
No.
Um, and so
So, like,
so that broke me
yeah.
basically, in in the sense that it ended up me being away from that job, and before got the new one, I think I was off for 7 months,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it wasn't the I got the position, so somehow have I've done some things that were actually working,
Yeah.
but at least for myself, I couldn't.
Yeah. You couldn't replicate.
I couldn't see myself going that
No.
direction. I didn't
No.
see that I had the abilities.
It
Was
wasn't. Yeah.
it was too steep a mountain for
Yeah.
me
Yeah. Yeah.
to climb,
Yeah.
and it broke me and put me on a sick leave for, yeah,
Yeah.
6 7 months.
Were
And
you? Go ahead.
part of that process was actually, uh, it I still like the company,
Yeah.
even though our ways
Yeah.
parted.
Yeah.
But part of the process was that I was actually offered, well, pick and choose whatever job you would like to have. Um, and that of course started a process within me saying,
Yeah.
okay, when were you last happy?
Yeah.
Uh, when were you doing something that you really cared about? And
Yeah.
that for me was, well, I had to go back to HR.
Yeah. To your root.
Uh, and but I'd always already been in the HR
Yeah. Yeah.
at PBS,
Yeah.
so that's the reason why our ways split, because I didn't want to be there again.
No.
So uh, I was set free, and then I ended up at DHL.
Yeah.
Um,
Were you drinking at that time?
yes.
Yeah. And how do you know? And if you want to share, and like I've shared, if there's something that you don't want to share, you don't have to share.
Mm.
Do you know why or how you became an alcoholic?
The part of the sobriety, or the rehab, I was in was actually there was an assignment where you have to go through your drinking history.
Yeah.
Uh, and the drinking history in the sense that you really have to dig deep because you have to go back to when did you have your first drink?
Yeah.
Did you have a beer when you were at what age and stuff like that? And then trying to identify situations where you have not just been drinking because you were going bar hopping or at parties and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I think for me in at least in my storytelling, I see there was an experience in high school where
Yeah.
we were abroad, where I had a very fierce or intense argument with one of my classmates,
Yeah.
and I see it in a bit of different perspective today. But
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, it was me
Yeah.
uh, getting extremely angry, and I've always been. It's always been difficult for me to control my feelings.
Yeah.
Uh, Normally having the temper, and in this situation, being abroad with 40 classmates, it's not the best time to
And
get a
if you're
temper.
extremely introverted, you probably need a lot of downtime as well. And if
Yeah,
you're not getting that, then yeah.
taking it inwards instead.
Yeah.
So the solution, and this is seen in hindsight, the solution for me that day was to drink.
Yes.
Um,
Makes sense.
and at least during the rehab, the explanation was, well, I basically learned that drinking could control my temper.
Yes.
So that was an equation.
Yeah.
So
There's a
if I
quote unquote
was,
logical
yeah,
react. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Everything's logical. Yeah.
So I think and then there was a lot of years where I think I didn't drink unnormally in that sense. But and at some point, and I think going back, it started around the sales job. That for me, a flip side of anger is also frustration.
Yeah.
So frustration for me not being who I wanted to be, being as competent as I wanted to be. So uh,
Mm.
slowly, gradually, it became more and more.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the time, it was still, at least as a Dane, uh,
Yeah.
just normal,
Yeah. I
just
mean,
normal Danish consumption, which
yes.
is quite
Yeah.
high.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
Looking
think we
back,
have a reckoning. I mean, I think there's a reckoning of sorts with the youth today,
yeah,
how normalized drinking is for, like, it's normal for youngs to drink from
mm,
their time they're 15. I think that we're starting to have some sort of reckoning in terms of what alcohol consumption actually
yeah,
does
it's
to
not
us.
necessary. No.
No, no.
Uh, But I think in the beginning it was quite normal. Yeah, coming home from work, having a glass of wine
Yeah,
for dinner.
yeah.
Then it was a glass of wine preparing dinner, and then a glass of wine for
Coming
dinner,
home.
and then a
Yeah,
glass
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah,
And then actually, then we're talking about from 2005 till 2019. It's a 10, 14, 10, 15 years period where it's gradually increased,
yeah,
um, ending, I think, on the last day before I went into rehab, it was at 2 bottles of red wine
yeah,
um,
yeah,
in 3 or 4 hours.
yeah,
That
yeah,
would be the normal consumption in the end.
yeah.
A couple of
On a daily
bottles of
basis.
wine, yeah, on a daily
Yeah,
basis.
yeah. And before you mentioned how like there's something that happens that seems to be outside of yourself that then makes you take that step in terms of I am now starting rehab, or Do you know what happened there? What happened that got you to that place of, okay, you don't.
No, no, because it's. I think we, at least for myself, I will. I think in the beginning I had the also in rehab feeling misplaced. First
Yeah.
of all, I wasn't an alcoholic. Of course, I wasn't. I just had to learn how to drink
Yes.
properly,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Probably.
in the
Yeah.
right in a proper way.
Yeah.
And the stories I've heard about alcoholics was, well, you have to hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
The wife has to leave you. You have to lose your job. You have to blah
Yeah.
blah blah.
Yeah.
Uh, I was married in 2011.
Yeah.
This was 19, having an okay marriage. Everything was working. I had a nice career.
Yeah.
Everything was working. I didn't hit rock bottom. Um, from a physical point of view, it was probably more the mental point of view. And I think the issue for me was more that if I have to explain, the day I took the decision was actually, it was at work, and it was a meeting with our health insurance. It was a
Yeah.
status meeting.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think they showed a statistics on the types of cases that our employees have had filed.
Yes.
Uh, and for some odd reason, I was asking, well, can you tell us something about how many have filed a case on rehab?
Yeah.
And they couldn't because it was too low a number.
Oh.
But it was the first and only time I've ever asked about it,
Yeah.
on specific rehab. Uh,
Yeah.
and going back, I think the only person that actually knew that I had an issue was my wife,
Yeah.
and she was the only one who poked the bear
Yeah.
from time to time, saying,
Yeah.
"Well,
Mm.
now you're getting too much. Can you have a
Yeah.
break? Can you at least?"
I think what you're sharing here is really important in terms of how we perceive or what we perceive an alcoholic to be. Like
Mm,
it's usually someone who's raving drunk, who's mumbling, who's incoherent, who's, outgoing and like at a party, but
mm,
whatever. And what you're describing is none of that. And so I hope that for those who are listening or who are watching, who is at a place where they might be, know that there are options in order for you to receive support. You may not be considering yourself an
mm.
alcoholic. When did you get to the point where you realized, oh, I'm an alcoholic? Like now you're a sober alcoholic, but like when did you get to that point?
When I went into rehab, the uh, I had a meeting with the counselor prior to the session started. I chose a solution because I also wanted to cover it. It had I didn't want everyone to see that I had an issue, so
Mm,
I chose a treatment or a rehab where I had to be in Aalborg 3 times a week
mm,
for some group therapy, and I had a pre-meeting with the counselor where he also said, "Well, now go home and drink whatever you want because on Monday it's over."
yeah,
Um, and I think it was actually at the first or second meeting, and we had the conversation on why were we there,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and you have to be honest, and you're sitting with 8 to 10 other
Like
people who
strangers. Yeah,
probably also there because they have an issue,
yeah,
and I think a lot of us had the perception that, well, the alcoholic in Danish terms is the guy on the bench,
yes,
uh, sitting with his plastic bag, and you can hear the
yeah,
beer bottles.
yeah. And life is in shambles. The wife's left them. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
uh, and and the counselor, and they still have so much gratitude to them because they were also former alcoholics and users and
Yeah.
different stories, but so they knew what they were talking about. And they
Yes.
were actually, he was just totally calm, saying, well, the problem between, or the issue or difference between you guys sitting in this room and the
Yeah.
guy on the bench is that the guy on the bench knows he has a problem. And he doesn't have a problem showing the world
Lamps and
that he
like,
has a problem.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but you guys, there was a bank director and there was
Yeah.
someone, we were all having fancy jobs and
Yes.
living the life,
Yes.
and didn't want anyone to see that we
Yeah.
had an issue.
No.
And he basically said, well, that's the difference.
Yeah.
You're trying to hide it. And I
Wow.
think that was I think I knew at some point, and that's also part of the, you can say, disease of being an alcoholic,
Mm.
that you do know you have a problem,
Yes.
but seeing going the distance from
Yes.
actually admitting that you have a problem
Yes.
to taking away the only thing you see giving your life meaning, or at least giving that's wrong, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of things that made life meaningful, but
Support, like
it
it was supporting you in a way. You mentioned the
it's the
emotion.
thing that makes the life tolerable.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was for me, the alcohol, the wine, the booze was that
Yeah.
was the present to myself
Yes.
for liviving the life I was doing. That
Yeah.
was the price,
Yes.
saying, well, you're living, you're working 40, 50 hours a week, you're traveling back and forth across the
Yeah.
country, the wife is a pain in the butt from
Yeah.
time to time, you're
Yes.
taking care of a kid that's not yours, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. So I had all the excuses, and the wine was my bowl of candy, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
where I had to, it was my treat to myself.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but you know you have a problem. You know that I was hiding the bottles. I was
Yeah.
going to Copenhagen for work. I could drink at the hotel. Uh, the I've had a lot of talks with my ex-wife and my kid, because I've also been very uh, worried that her being, she was around 13 when I stopped drinking,
Yeah.
that my drinking had caused some sort of damage to her.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of talks for the past couple of years,
Yeah.
all three of us. And I think my advantage, or the positive side for me, is that alcohol didn't make me angry or violent or
Mm.
hard. It actually did the complete reverse.
Yes.
So it took away the anger and the
Yeah.
frustration.
Yeah.
So the experience from their side was it's actually cool
Softer. Yeah.
for the time being, that you get your
Yeah.
glass of wine, because then
Yeah.
we know that you're going to be calmer,
Okay.
and more pleasant to be
How
with.
have you how have you then learned to deal, because those are feelings, like feelings are feelings and feel I mean it's interesting that you mentioned feelings, because I haven't had alcohol, and probably it wasn't like a certain date. I think it was probably 2014 or something like that, because I started realizing that I was like having a glass of wine every night, but I was also noticing that 2 days after I'd had wine, my emotions were all like, I was very sad and depressed, and I started
Hmm.
to see that there was a correlation for me between that. So I sort of thought, okay, I'll just try without for a while. And
Hmm.
then now that's been sort of, I think, 11 years. It's not like since I was ish.
Just on a break.
I'm just on a break. Yeah. My
Hmm.
my father was an alcoholic, so I think I have a different also
Hmm.
thing with alcohol. But I'm wondering, what was my question? How have you
Feelings.
learned
Yeah.
to deal with because the emotions are still there, and I'm suppose this also, there's a couple of questions. Number one, like how have you learned to, and also, is there a correlation between you then being diagnosed with autism last year? Because I know that that's probably also more emotional or mental as well. Is there like, how have you learned to deal with that, or develop, I suppose, and I don't know if the right word is coping mechanisms or like, but
Yeah, I think for me, yep, the feelings is still there. Absolutely. In a different way.
yeah,
Uh, because I also think the alcohol fueled uh, some of the feelings.
yeah,
Because yeah, if
yeah,
you're drinking 2 bottles of wine, and I did it mostly a couple of hours before midnight, because then I was alone,
yeah,
working at home, and the family was already in bed. So
yeah,
I started drinking, uh, drank very fast, got a few hours of sleep, and then went to work. So
yeah,
it was just a bad circle.
yeah. Did you
So
also
my
have the notion it's wine, so it's not as bad, like it's not hard alcohol, like if it was whiskey or
it
coffee?
was it was good. Uh, I can see in my notes from rehab, I was drinking a good glass of wine. I was drinking
Yes,
expensive whiskey,
yes.
expensive brandy.
Okay.
Uh, I wasn't drinking cheap shit.
No,
Uh,
no, no, the good
so it was
stuff.
okay. It was
Yes, it
okay.
was okay. Yeah, yeah, no, I get it.
Uh,
No, no, that
I
makes
didn't
sense.
have a problem. I was drinking it because it
Yeah,
was good. And
yeah,
as
yeah.
my counselor said, well, have you ever heard anyone saying, I'm looking forward to a bad glass of red wine? And yeah, no one ever said that.
Oh,
No, but of course the feelings have continued. But I think for me, when I stopped drinking, I was weighing around 30 kilos more than I'm right now. On the good side of 110.
yeah,
Um, I think without doing anything, I think I lost 10 kilos for the first 2 or 3 months
yeah,
just by not drinking.
yeah,
Um, and that fueled a process I've been running from time to time before prior to that, but uh, I had to find a way to get the excess energy out of my body.
yeah,
Uh, so I started running, and I think in a sense, I'm not. I don't think I'm addicted to running in the same way I was addicted to red wine, but it's a it's an activity where I know I can process.
yes,
It's a good medicine.
yes, yeah, and it's
Uh,
it's healthier than
it's a
alcohol, as
better
long as it
way
doesn't
of
go
actually,
into
yeah.
injury and blah blah blah.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
so definitely still have the feelings, and then when I combine it with the almost rebirth is a big word, but I think the
yeah,
getting the autism diagnosed
yeah,
last year, just it came with a bag of pieces to the puzzle that
yes,
I've been missing.
yes,
It's for me, it was still me who was drinking. It was
yes,
still me who made
yes,
all the wrong decisions.
yes, yes,
But now I understand why I did
yes,
make
yes,
these types of decisions.
yes,
That it wasn't. Yes, it was still anger. It was still frustration, but it was anger and frustration for different reasons than
yes,
I thought.
yes,
Um,
yes,
uh, it wasn't because everyone else was idiots and couldn't do things in the right way. It's
no,
because I'm wired in a different way.
yes, yes,
And I think at least for the past year, uh, I'm still
yeah,
taking very small baby steps
yeah,
in that
process.
world, but it's still getting these experiences where I can see that, okay, I know I'm going to react. Yesterday we were at a conference at Dansk Industri.
Yes.
Uh, 5 hours of lectures, being socializing,
Yeah.
a lot of people, things happening, and now going back 6 years.
Yeah.
At 5 o'clock, I would be at the hotel getting a drink
Yes.
just to calm down.
Yeah.
Now, with the knowledge I have today, I know, well, you just take a walk
Yeah.
instead of going back to the hotel, having a half an hour with a glass of red wine, then you go for a walk.
Yeah.
Having the same effect,
Yeah.
but very two components to get the
Yeah.
same effect. And so yes, I still have the emotions. I can still have a fit at work,
Yeah.
but I'm more aware that what triggers me.
Yes.
I know that if we're going to have an all-day board meeting,
Yeah.
I have to have 7 or 8 hours of sleep the day
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to be, pardon my French, an asshole at the
Yes.
meeting.
Yes.
Being too sarcastic and too sharp or too direct in
Yes.
my language.
Yes.
Uh, and I
Yes.
think the autism has just come with a bag of pieces to my puzzle.
Yeah.
I'm still figuring out where they have to be.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's got getting to be a more understandable picture
Yeah.
in a way.
And how does being a sober alcoholic, and I don't want to put those two in the same
Mm.
because I understand that these are two different things, but both being a sober alcoholic and also having an autism, I know that there's different perspective on whether we have autism or we are autistic, and I want to honor either
I
way.
don't care.
No, but I want to make
I know,
sure that
but I
honor.
know, yeah.
I know that there's people who's like, but how does that inform your, because like you are in a management position, you
Mm.
have a leadership position within the company, and thus you have the ability to set directions, and that's part of the reason why I recommend people go follow you on LinkedIn, is because you share some very powerful perspectives in terms of inclusion, inclusion of diversity. Um, but it doesn't come from a place of, oh, this is something that we have to do. It actually comes from a place of, this is who we are. And so it's about
Mm.
forming or tailoring the work environment to those rather than the other way around. So how has this, I don't know if it's amplified your experience as a leader, or how does it inform your leadership and your, I suppose,
I
management?
think, yeah, I think it's a combination because being in a company like ours, the diversity and inclusion agenda has been, I think it's been a topic in the HR agenda for 8, 10 years. Uh, and I think if I'm going back 8 or 10 years in DHL, we did the things that we needed to do.
Yes.
That is expected of a company,
Yeah.
of a global company of our
Yeah.
size.
Yeah.
Nothing special on that. And I think uh, I've told the story before, but when I went into rehab, approximately a month after, I had the urge or the idea or the need to actually go public with the information that I was in rehab, and part of the rehab, and I think that was the idea that fueled it, is that, well, for the past XYZ years,
Yeah.
we as addicts have been lying,
Mm.
cheating, covering up.
Yes.
So you have to be open and honest. You have to be open and honest on
Yes.
the positive things, but also the negative.
Yes.
On the feelings that now is a shitty day, you blah blah blah. Just being open and honest. And I think those two terms, open and honest, was actually what fueled me of saying, well, for me as a person, I need to come out with the story.
Yes.
Not thinking corporate, not thinking branding, not thinking. I just needed to get it out there.
Yeah.
Also, I had to admit it a couple of weeks ago. Also, as a band-aid for myself, because if everyone knew I was an alcoholic, then everyone could, if they saw me with a glass of red wine,
Yes.
it was okay for them to pose the question.
Yeah.
And in that sense,
so it's accountability. Yeah.
Yeah, and it basically a challenge to myself, saying, well, if you can tell it to the world, then you also have to tell the world if you fail. And have to be open and honest about that. And then I think the reaction I got, it was without any thoughts of going out with the message that I had the issue and that I was in rehab, and my story was, I think it was boiled down to me. Well, if I can have a life where I have the house, the car, the family, the job, whatever, but still have an issue, then there's probably others who also have the issue or are in the same situation. And I just wanted to basically say, well, if I can go through this process, then hopefully someone else can do it as well. And I think it has built over the past 6 years of me actually. It's very rarely if you see me communicating on LinkedIn that I'm not corporate in the way that I'm not promoting our products. I'm not promoting specific programs. I'm using the company just as examples of how they support me in my process and in my journey. And I think it's important that using both the autism, when I announced that last year, and the alcoholism, that if I can go undetected in the system for 20 years, both with the autism but also the alcoholism, I'm not unique. There's probably a lot of people out there in the same situation, and I'm not the man on the bench. I have a responsibility. I have a job. I'm actually doing. I'm actually good at my job, in spite of all my defects,
or because
perhaps because of them. And I think that the one part of the message I want to bring out is that, yes, I have a defect of being alcoholic. I have a defect of being autistic. I know
that's not a defect. I don't see
that's
that.
not a defect. I know that, but also the quotation marks. But I'm not unique. So me ending up, if I'd known, I just have to reverse it. If I'd been diagnosed as a kid, or if the company knew in advance that I was an alcoholic, I would probably not have ended up in the position I have.
No.
So in spite of, because of these, this luggage I bring with me, I think I want to at least be an example that to showcase that yes, there's a lot of us sitting out there with something in our luggage.
Yes.
That doesn't make us bad people.
No.
Um, uh, we're doing the best we can.
And it's a,
Uh,
it's a way of making the world a better place. Like, I know this sounds very high level, but to me, what you're describing is giving employees an opportunity to be who they are as them full selves.
mm,
Uh, makes them happier at work, which in turn, the more happier, satisfied we are, the better like decisions we make in other areas of our lives. And that to me, then that's sort of like that just creates
mm,
a ripple effect that elevates everything. And that's why I say the word, I think it's called kintsugi, which is in Japanese. It's where it's the process of where they take a broken, like,
with the
and
gold.
they, with gold,
Yeah.
and, and you having, you know, recognized and acknowledged that you're an alcoholic later in life and having been diagnosed with autism has given you years and years of experience of what it was like without being, of hiding and without having the proper self-care in place for yourself to then be able to find, because then, in the contrast, the
Mm,
solutions become clear. It's like, oh, I need these types of solution. And then you can create that for other people's as well.
mm.
And you sharing that again highlights, yeah,
Yeah,
how,
and for me, it's quite simple in the sense that we were also talking about it yesterday in one of the breaks at the conference. That for me, I don't care whether it's the conference yesterday was on neurodiversity,
yeah,
and but for me, and the thing I'm working on, and the culture I'm trying to create in the company along with my colleagues is I don't care whether it's neurodiversity, alcoholism, addiction, or women going through menopause. Uh,
yeah,
it's all phases of our lives where if I'm going to be a person, the whole person at work, I need to have an employer that can um, encompass or encompass all parts of my life.
yeah,
So yes, I might be a young mother who just had her first child asking for part-time,
yeah,
but I can also be a woman in the mid 50s going through menopause who needs part-time.
yeah,
And it's small things that might be able to make life a bit more easy on
mm,
people.
mm,
Uh, I'm we
yeah,
moved into a new office 3 months ago, and I'm the only one who has a light switch in my office, because in the rest of the building it's automatic lighting.
oh, okay,
But
yeah,
I want to be able to sit in complete darkness.
yes,
Uh, that's the small thing
yes,
that makes the day bearable for me.
yes,
It's a
and I,
simple thing.
yes,
It's
but
not. I'm not asking for the Rolls Royce. I'm
no,
just asking for a light switch.
yes, so you can turn it on and off, yes.
Yeah.
And I suppose from an HR perspective, you do also have, like, if people are being met properly, if they're being taken care of properly, there's also a correlation to productivity and satisfaction level, and you don't have as much turnover. And so it's
Mm,
not just, that's the thing, it's both, and it both
mm,
supports the employee and the company as well. Because I remember I was having one of the first conversations I had on this podcast was with Tina Maria, who's at the time she was a managing partner at Deloitte. I think her title has changed, but one of the things that they did was they had implemented mindfulness and these 7 minutes of meditation that people
mm,
could do, not having to do, but could do. And what she shared was also that how it had a direct reflection on their KPIs, how they were the most they were the highest scored department and
Mm,
within Deloitte. There's a bunch of, so you could actually see, and that's one of the things when it comes to corporate is oftentimes things like mindfulness or meditation or yoga or breathing exercises, or if you want to do oracle cards or crystals or whatever you like, journaling, those are very non-tangible things, but I
mm,
like when I work with clients, I always make it tangible because everything to me is measurable and you can see a direct correlation between the two, which I
mm.
absolutely loved that you can actually see that. So I'm just because yes,
Of course, there's I've I've been in HR for so long that
yeah, it's
that
hard.
I've also experienced HR at the time where employees saw HR as their union rep.
Yes.
It was their go-to person, and
Yeah.
I've spent, I think, most of my career saying, well, someone is paying my salary,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's the guys I'm working for.
Yes.
So
Yes.
everything I do is, of course,
Yes.
with the end game of you being more productive.
Yes.
But I think you won't see me or hear me talking about productivity and
No. No. Because you don't have to.
KPIs. And for me, it's just
No.
as long as people are going to work and have the ability of being themselves,
Yes.
they are going to perform better.
Yes.
It's
Yes. Yes.
it's and going back to the sales days, which is
Yes.
actually where it all started.
Yes.
And then we are back to the tattoos, where I got my first tattoo. And being a sales rep at the time, I was told that you're not allowed to have tattoos if it's visible for the clients. Uh, and even at that time, and that's some of the small signals that the autism has always been
Yeah.
there, that I had an issue being told to wear
Yes.
suits. I
Yes.
didn't have a problem having a suit on, but the suit,
Yes.
to this day, I'm at work right now. I'm having the
Yes.
baggy pants and a
Yes.
sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
but for me, the provocation or
Yes.
the of being told that you
Yes.
cannot show your tattoo,
Yes.
so you have to be
Yeah.
completely covered.
Yeah.
And for me, was a discussion on, well, does the competencies, are they in the
Yeah.
suit or
Yes.
are they in me?
Yes. Yes. That's
Um,
the first thing I did when I quit when I quit my job at PBS where we were working was I got the like a massive tattoo on my left forearm. So there's no going back to sales now
oh,
because like I have this tattoo. And also I have a massive thing, but that's for another day because
mm,
the idea that what is professional, what's corporate. Like I'm on LinkedIn and I share all of my stuff is spiritual
mm,
and way spiritual. And I haven't had anyone comment on that other than finding it nice and uplifting. But like, who's to say what is professional? Like, I remember,
mm,
I had to wear the 4-inch heels and the pencil skirts and I had blonde and I had the acrylic nails and I had the full make. I had the whole thing because that was my idea of what like that was.
mm.
And in a way, it was good because they never knew what hit them before they signed the agreement. Like they had signed the agreement. You use what you have. And today I'm like, who's like nobody gets to tell me what's quote unquote
Mm.
professional or corporate or appropriate. Like, if you want to judge me based on what I'm wearing, because most of the time, like not today, but most of the time I'm wearing some sort of glitter or sparkly thing. Like, if you want to judge me based on that, that's your thing. That's not mine. Like,
Mm.
then you miss out on everything that I am and everything that I bring to the table. Be my guest. Like, you're the one missing out. So Christoffer, we have like I know I promised you like way less time than we've gone way over time. Is there any normally I'd like to ask if you like how do you define mastery? I don't know if you want to answer that or if there's anything that's left unsaid or what is mastery to you? before we jump off?
No idea on.
No idea.
No.
Well, it'll just set you up.
Yeah.
You can always message me and we can have another.
Yeah.
You can tell me. Do you have any final words? Anything else you want to close off with, or are we complete in this sacred conversation?
I think I just want to thank you in again every time I have these conversation on, and for me it's been, I think I'm repeating myself or telling the same story, but it always gets a new perspective.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for
Thank you.
giving me a new perspective on life and my process and how I am in life.
I'm going to be leaving links for, I don't know, I'm going to try to find links for different support systems like AA and stuff, so that people, if they have recognized themselves in your story, then you know that there is support to be received, and that lines are open. So that will be in the show notes. Yeah, I mean, again, apparently it was just a brief few months that we connected, and this is what it's led to. Thank you for being so open. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being fragile and vulnerable, allowing yourself to be in that space. Thank you for the inspiration and for all of the experiences, challenges, hard, good, bad, ugly, that you've gone through, that you are now able to be who you are today. So thank you so much. And
thank you
to everyone listening, have a wonderful day. Lots of love. That is what I have for you in today's episode of Mastery with Maria Saraphina. I hope it served you well. For all the deeds and details, click the link in the description and help me spread the love of this transmission by sharing it with a friend or on social media, or leave me a comment or review. Have a wonderful day. God bless.